podcast for those who suffer, which is everyone.
It's a space where we can speak honestly about what it feels like to be in desolate places without losing hope.
Welcome to In the Thicket.
Today we're talking about the loss of a child during pregnancy, and we wanted to give you a heads up about that because we know it can touch some really tender places in the heart, especially for those who have lost a child or who are very close to somebody who has lost a child. Kathleen and Jesse LeBlanc are our guests today, and they share about the experience of losing their son, Pierre Joseph, while Kathleen was pregnant with him. They share about the grief and the challenges. They also share about where they found the Lord, where he was present in those times, and some things that might be helpful for you if you've gone through that experience or if you're supporting somebody who has gone through the loss of a child during pregnancy. And we hope that it's helpful for you, and we invite you to share it with someone. If you know somebody who's going through this now or who's gone through it in the past and you think it might be helpful for them. God bless you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our special guests today. Dun, dun, dun. We are joined on In the Thicket today by two beautiful, beautiful people that Rachel and I both love. First of all, Nicole sends her regrets. She is not feeling well today, so she wasn't able to join us. And my name is Erin. I'm one of the hosts, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Rachel. Hello.
And
we're usually much worse at that than what we just did. So
we did it pretty streamlined. It was good. Yeah. And we're joined by, excuse me, also I'm feeling a little sick, so I'll try not to hack into the microphone directly. The two beautiful people we are talking about are, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
And Jesse.
Yeah. Dang it. We didn't practice.
That was amazing. I love it. It's so great to see your faces, guys.
And yours.
Likewise. Oh my goodness.
It's so nice.
Good? Because you're in bed? Had a good-ish day?
Awesome.
That's great.
It's as good as it gets. No, just
That's
kidding.
like the best day. I can't even like it's only two nephews that I have, but sometimes when I hang out with them, I'm like, we were talking today about my younger nephew, Nico, who for some reason lately, the other day went up to his dad and he was like, I really want to go to Home Depot and get a faucet.
Oh, wow.
What? He's like 5. And then he was asking for a hammer, and then he wanted some kind of like electric lighter. And then he was like,
when did you look into this more deeply? Wait, what are you doing?
He's building something, maybe in the backyard or something. Anyways, all that to say is he's like a little terrorist. He's a beautiful little terrorist, but he's a little terrorist nonetheless, I should say. But they're like, it's amazing how cute they are and how much you love them and how exhausting they are. And then you like put them to bed and then you're like, I love them so much. And then you're like, I miss their cute little squidgy bodies now.
Totally. Yes. I told somebody once, it's kind of like eating your favorite dessert every single day, all day. You're like, I love this so much, but I could use a break, but I also like it.
Yeah. Maybe too much sugar, but also it's so tasty. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, man.
Oh, this is good. Why don't you guys tell us? Oh, you put your dessert to bed. That's
you want to eat it again.
Yeah. That just immediately made me think of sticky things, and then I got real sensory grossed out.
You're welcome.
Some sticky things in my bed.
Thank you. That's good. I was going to ask something. Oh yeah. Before we forget, I wanted to ask you guys to tell us a little bit about your music ministry and Catholic date nights and stuff like that to make sure we don't forget to ask you.
Sure. Well, go ahead, sweetie.
Well, we got some ministries and they're pretty cool.
Maybe I should have started.
She always regrets. She's like, it can't be live. Can I edit it after?
I love you guys.
So our music ministry is called Found Together. And currently we are writing some Catholic songs that we are going to record. And we are very excited about it.
Yes. So Jesse and I are a band.
What?
I play piano and sing. He plays guitar and sings. We actually met through music. So eventually that rolled into our band called Found Together. And we've recorded one EP of love songs. And now we're recording our first worship EP. So we're super excited. So if you want to check that
amazing.
out.
That's exactly
We
what I
are
said.
Found Together.
That's
is
exactly
our
what I
handle.
said.
Yeah.
You should check it. I just want to say, y'all should check it out because
Love
it's
it.
awesome. I have a T-shirt. I'm a groupie.
Nice.
You know,
Yep.
stream
pretty
all the
sweet.
stuff on Spotify. It's really good. It's good stuff.
We're still waiting, Rachel, on a song from you. You said you were going to be
I was wondering
recording
if
a
you
song.
remembered. I was like, I had this pack
Rachel.
that I made with Jesse and Kathleen when I visited them in the summer. I was like, guys, we should make like a songwriting, like you know, what was it? Like a group thing.
I think we made accountability.
Yes,
But
that was it. And I was like, I'm going to
Really
send you guys a
good.
song a month. Not for
Yeah.
Like
not
writing
one, not a
music, you
single
mean?
song. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
Like by
practicing.
next month, I will have this song done.
Yeah.
I know, but that's the thing. I haven't sent them a single song. It was like one song a month, 0 songs over like 6 months. So that's not good. But it's actually
you
hasn't
owe
left
us.
my mind. I was like, I should. But anyways. But they're
That's awesome.
fantastic. Everybody should listen to your EP that's out already, and we're all waiting.
I
for
think
the,
this just
for the
like
worship album.
demonstrated exactly like the first times that I met you guys, because the first time that I heard your voice, Kathleen, I was like, who is that angel singing who just dropped from heaven? And it's like tantalizing my ear. I was going to say earbuds, and then I'm like, that's not, I'm mixing up all of my senses right now.
Anyways, it works. I get it. I get what
All
you're
that
saying.
to say, yeah, right? See, it works exactly.
I get it.
Yeah. And then the first time that I met Jesse, I was like, that guy's funny. That guy's hilarious.
Tantalizing your humor buds.
That's right, exactly. My funny
buds.
That's right. Yeah. When did you meet Kathleen and Jesse, Rach?
Oh, I met them. When did we meet? I feel like that was not a good sound for audio, but I'm sorry. I keep thinking.
No,
it's
probably about
like
5 or 6
definitely
years ago.
Yeah, we
Rachel
definitely
and I
met
grew
in
up together.
2019. Yeah.
It wasn't it at the youth rally, wasn't it?
I think that's right.
Or shortly
It's
thereafter?
kind of through our mutual friends, the Seidenbergs. But you know what? I feel like I had known about you, Kathleen, before that because of your music. I think
a retreat too.
Life stuff, maybe.
Yeah, I think we did a retreat together too. Anyways, this is boring to listen to, but we should figure it out.
Yeah, we should. I'm sorry. Yeah, we met a while ago, but then we started, like, we became good friends probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I think that's right.
And then Rachel took my job.
I did. I
Oh,
took her
right.
job.
But I asked her to.
Right.
To my mat leave.
And she
mat leave
prepared
from
me for
campus
it
ministry.
really, really well,
Yeah.
which I was super grateful for.
Nice.
Yeah.
They were very helpful
fun.
binders.
It's like a small Catholic world. You know what I mean? Because probably
No, it's
like,
not small. It's very big. It's just very well connected.
Yes.
Change.
Okay, I
You
like
have to
that.
change what you say.
Yes.
People say, "Oh, the Catholic world's so small." No, it's just really well
That's right.
connected.
That's
That's
right.
true.
That's true.
That's true.
Yes.
We are big
I
and
love
mighty.
it.
We are
That's
big and
right.
mighty, especially in Canada. I feel like we are very like this for our American listeners. I think this might not be as, although even in the States, like people are pretty closely connected if you're Catholic. But I think like in Canada, especially and I think that's because it's harder. It takes more work and effort to really kind of live out your faith because there's not Catholics are sort of not. It's hard to find community. It's harder, not because we don't have it, it's there, but it just takes more commitment, I think. And that's sort of also then the gift of that is that it's just the people who are really living their faith in Canada really are like, it's like a 1,000% in, which is really also a very cool blessing. So.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's a
it
good way
is.
to put it.
That's okay because Jesus is coming back very soon. So it's just,
That's just Aaron's saying for all any.
I mean, Jesus said it, so.
And then
Yeah.
that's true. He did. He did.
he probably just
What
had
is
a
soon?
different definition of soon than
That's right.
It's weird that God would have a different definition of soon.
Yeah, this is interesting. Philosophically
compared to
speaking.
eternity.
Okay, listen. Anyways, so on to the actual the rest of we could just like hang out for hours and just like chat like this, but you're right, it would be boring for everybody else except for us. But yeah, for the topic for today, we've talked about all kinds of different topics with like kids and pregnancy and infertility and medically fragile children and all of those kind of things. But today's topic on like losing a child during pregnancy or having miscarriage is like such a common thing that women experience. But from some of the friends that I know who've had miscarriages or lost a child, they've spoken a lot about feeling alone in that a lot of the time, because it's not something often that people are, partially I think because it's so tender and painful. So it's not the same talking about that as, you know, if you get an injury or something like that, you know, it's just so tender, and not everybody responds, knows how to respond or how to love somebody when they're grieving that much. But I think also, I don't know. Maybe you can speak a little bit to that later, but it's one of those things that sometimes we kind of gets hidden under layers of stuff, and then people can feel very alone in their experience. So when we were thinking about guests for today, you guys were the first ones that came to mind, partly because you were just beautiful and we wanted to be with you, but then also just because we know your hearts for the Lord and how much you seek the Lord in everything. So we really felt like you guys, and being able to share about losing your child, that it would be that people would really be able to connect to it well. So thanks ahead of time for joining us. And so maybe we'll just start out with, you guys can tell us a little bit about kind of how you met and like your early married life, and then, you know, when you started having kids and that whole process. I mean, you don't have to go in detail in that process. I'm just saying.
One of those podcasts in the thicket.
This is a PG podcast.
Is it though? Sure.
Sometimes, you know?
Yeah. We're Catholic. Well, yeah, sure. You want to talk about how we met?
Sure. And then you fix it. We met, like Kate said, we met in school at Trinity. I was studying nursing. She was studying Christianity and culture.
Deep.
Super
nice.
Deep. And a mutual friend said, hey, you guys should play music together. And then we fell deeply in love.
Kind of.
You know, there was a few things in between.
I was engaged. But that's we could do another podcast about that, discernment in marriage.
We should do a podcast.
You were engaged?
I was engaged.
Oh my gosh.
When I met Jesse.
Why didn't you tell me?
But so fast forward, eventually I broke that off, obviously.
Oh,
Jesse, like,
you're still engaged. He's like, wait, what's going on?
He's like planning the wedding. I'm just holding off.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And we
sorry if you're listening.
Got married in 2016. So we dated for a year, got engaged for a year, got married in 2016, January 2nd. So we just had our 9-year wedding anniversary this past week.
Congratulations.
Yes, in January. So thank you. So from there we were still in school. So I think we waited until we were done school to start actively trying to have kids.
I think it wasn't quite that. I think it was.
We always have mixed memories.
The first month or two, I feel like the first month or a little more, that was kind of our thought, and then we were like, you know what? Let's just try, because by the time the baby's born,
we'll be done.
God willing, we'll be done and working.
Yeah, because we just had a semester left. Yeah, so I think when we talk about NFP, our approach was like, we're not like trying, like, this is the window, go. It was like, let's just live our life. And I was working in youth ministry. He was a nurse. So like a lot of times we were just like ships in the night because of crazy schedules. But we didn't end up conceiving for almost a year then. And we were a little bit like concerned and like definitely saddened. And I know that I was like, you know, the months that went by where you thought it would have happened, it was like, oh, okay. And so that could be another topic too. I know you've talked about infertility on your podcast. That's a little bit of our early journey. But we got pregnant in just after we had our first anniversary. And I don't know if I just like jumped way too like.
No, it's good.
Life first, but,
keep going. It's great.
So we conceived just after our first year of marriage, and so we were so excited. It was like finally a relief that it like finally happened, and then about 2 months in, I went for my first ultrasound. And ultrasound was actually on my birthday, so we were so excited to go for our ultrasound and see the baby, and so then I went and they were doing the anatomy scan, and the lady that was doing the ultrasound said to me by myself, which was like, I should know Jesse was there, but anyway, she told me that there was no heartbeat. And I was just like in absolute like shock.
Yeah.
Also just like, whirlwind. Jesse was not in the room with me, and I was like, can you bring my husband in here? And anyway, they said they couldn't find a heartbeat. The baby looked like it had passed away a couple of weeks prior. My body hadn't miscarried yet. And that was a very difficult day. And I think they're just like talking about miscarriage and not like feeling like you're alone. Like I didn't think that it would happen to me, and like nobody does. But I think also if it's like maybe like your sister experienced miscarriage or your mom, like it's more familiar to you. But I was like, no, my mom didn't have any. My sister hasn't had any. She's had like my mom had 6 kids. My sister had 4 kids at the time. It was like I didn't even think about it. So we went from there just like talking with our doctor about what the next steps were, because my body wasn't miscarrying. And just on a practical note for anyone listening, if this is like your experience or if this happens to you, God forbid, in the future, our situation was that I ended up having to have a D&C where they removed the baby from me because my body wasn't doing it naturally. And anyway, they give you the choice between like taking pills to induce labor or having the D&C. So we went with the D&C. So that experience in itself was very, I will say, traumatizing. Like it was very, very difficult and emotional. And I remember waking up from the anesthesia from the surgery, just like yelling out, "Where's my baby?" It was really hard. But we were very blessed at the time to have such like a supportive community. We lived in BC, so both of our families are out like Ontario. Jesse's Nova Scotia, but we had a very supportive community. So, and I felt comfortable sharing what was going on with those people. So I'm blessed that I didn't feel alone in that sense, that like we knew we were telling people what was going on, and they were very helpful and brought meals for us, and they're very supportive. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, we just felt surrounded. We had one friend over quite often, especially immediately after, and she was just kind of there for us the whole time, whatever we needed, whatever cleaning we needed to be done. So that was, it was just a godsend to have the family and friends that were close by. And after the DNC as well, we wanted the remains. And so we requested them. They needed to, I don't know what they need to do in the hospital, but they couldn't give them to us that day, but they told us that we could come back later. So I went back to kind of retrieve our son and brought him back. Yeah.
That memory is one of the hardest memories, I think, for me too, because you just think you'll walk out of the hospital carrying your live baby, and we were, just carrying a container, of our baby. But we were, fortunate that we were able to have his remains and bring them home and arrange for a funeral. We were able to have a funeral because we had his remains. Father Mark McGuckin walked us through that whole thing, and a few weeks later had a funeral for him, which was very healing. So good to like say things out loud and pray and, you know, commit him to the Lord. And I know like there's no like official church teaching about, you know, babies, but it's like, oh my gosh, obviously they're in heaven with the Lord. Duh. But so that was a very healing and important experience. And if you live in the Vancouver area, you probably know of Gardens of Gethsemane Cemetery. And they have this beautiful monument for infants who are lost and miscarried babies. And it's like, why don't all cemeteries have this? Because it was so important for us to be able to have a place to lay our baby. And even if you don't have your baby's remains, they allow you to have like a little memorial plaque on this huge like statue, like a Rachel Morin statue. It's so beautiful. It's like when they don't have that like opportunity for that in other places, it's like, what a missed opportunity. So I think people I know have asked, we can talk about this later, but like asking your priest to bury your baby in like the church garden or things, which is beautiful. But we have a memorial for him. His name is Pierre Joseph at this cemetery. So that was very, very special and very healing for us to be able to do that. We named him Pierre because you want to tell him how we asked God to tell us if it was a boy or a girl?
So we couldn't tell because it was so early, but we really wanted to know so that we could name the baby. And so we don't often ask God for signs, but this was one of the couple times we did. And I said, okay, if it's a boy, I want a sign. Like, I want it to be clear, and I want it to be Spider-Man.
Because we talked about, like, what do we love from our childhood? Like, we said, from your childhood, Spider-Man. From my childhood, I think we said, like, Polly Pockets or something like that.
Oh, cute. Okay. Yeah.
So.
And then, I think it was, like, maybe that night, I went to sleep and I had a dream, and I've never dreamt about Spider-Man, even in my childhood. But really? I dreamt that I dreamt that I was Spider-Man.
That you were Spider-Man.
Yeah. I don't remember all the details, but I remember clearly like being Spider-Man, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
And I woke up and I said, like, I don't think I said it right away. I remember saying something like, I think our baby's a boy. And you said, yeah, I think so too. And you said, why do you think so? And I said, well, I'm Spider-Man. No, I didn't say that in my Batman voice. But it was just so like God was so ready to give that to us, you know, that he wanted us to have this relationship with our son, because it mattered to us and it matters to him, you know?
Yeah.
And so, from there we, a couple of saints that are big with us are, well, Blessed Pierre Giorgio Frassati and Saint Joseph Obvi. And so, Pierre Joseph.
And also, if this has happened to you or in the future, we have had friends who like they don't know the gender of their baby, but they name their baby like just whatever they want, or a name that's kind of like gender neutral or whatever. So like don't feel that if you don't know. Don't feel if you don't know that you can't name your baby, but we felt strongly that it was a boy. So
it's so interesting even to hear that, like some of those steps, because when I was taking pastoral counseling and we were talking about women who've experienced abortion and about healing from abortion, and so many of the things are the same, you know, like, of course, sacramental confession, but then naming what sex you think that your baby was and giving the baby a name and doing something physical that's like, not necessarily a burial, but like something, you know, having, like mass, like all of those kind of things that are like we're such tangible people, you know, like we live, we experience, everything is physical, you know, so to be able to like use our whole person in the grieving process is like really important, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, part of what I think God has brought from, you know, God always brings good out of awful things. And, first of all, like we know that he doesn't will death. Like that's the whole point of his coming, right? Is that he wants to eradicate death, and he has, but death is still part of, you know, our fallen nature. And so, yeah, knowing that he doesn't will death, but he can bring good out of it. And I think that one of the good things he's brought out of our story is being able to help other couples who have experienced miscarriage and walk with them and talk with them about doing these physical things to help you grieve, like naming your baby and having some sort of memorial, or even like we have like, I don't know if we call it a shrine, but we have like a little shrine to our baby in our room with like the ultrasound picture and like a box of just like little memories, like a rosary somebody gave us when we lost him, and like pictures we'd taken of ourselves with like our pregnancy announcement and a little blanket I had bought for him, like things like that in this box on our desk or on our dresser, which, you know, the kids see, and like it's a very physical, like visible part of our family, and it really, really helps, even though it's in a lot of ways difficult to have it there in some ways, because it's a reminder, but it's like I would rather that difficult reminder be there than to just like shove the feelings away, you know?
Yeah.
It helps the feelings not be so painful in a bad way. Like it's painful in a way that's like, I love my baby so much that it's painful, not like I'm trying to not feel the love kind of pain.
Yes. Which are two totally different things. Yeah.
I was just like struck by, you know, I think one of the hard things when we talk about miscarriage in general is that it's like a word that doesn't necessarily signal like child loss, like like parents losing a child. And I mean that it's not a bad word to use or anything like that, but I'm just like, I think, you know, it kind of seems to mask what really happened in a certain sense. It's sort of like a medical term. It doesn't mask it, but like, you know what I mean? I feel like that's maybe one of the reasons, Aaron, why you were saying like people feel alone, because in some ways it's like, it's in a simple sense, it's like parents, you've lost a child. You just lost a child. Yeah. That's what happened. And it was in a particular time in this child's life. It was at a particular time in your, you know, life with this baby. And that's why we have these terms, and they're very helpful in certain contexts. But I think like, it's really, to me, it really is like, it's important to know. And all these steps that you're talking about, like, yeah, because you lost a child, and that really did happen. And it's hard because it was at a time in that baby's life when you don't have all of the stuff you normally would have to be able to process a loss like that readily available. So you have to kind of realize that you need, you know, that what is your baby, you want to give your baby a name. Your baby in a way has a name, you know, all like in a certain sense always has a name. Like every person is known by God and called by name. And like, we all have a name. And so it's like, these things belong to that baby. And, you know, it just was that time that we didn't yet get there in our timeline, but the Lord knows, like the Lord knows that baby. He knows you as parents. He knows who your baby is. And in some sense, like all these steps are a way of integrating the reality that God already has before him about your baby into your own life after you lose your baby. And it's like, this is what has happened. And the truth of that needs to be really honored in all of these different ways. And maybe people don't, you know, who don't know anything about this or have no experience with this, don't realize that that's really what we're talking about. And you know, maybe that's no one's fault, but I feel like that's kind of what keeps coming to me is like really what we're talking about, which is what you've articulated so beautifully is, you know, you lost a baby, you lost a child, and we all need to sort of see the truth of that and the truth of your baby and your baby being with the Lord and all these things. So I mean, it's kind of obvious, and I'm just like stating the obvious here, but but I don't think it's that obvious to everybody all the time. And I think, for those people, those of us who haven't experienced this or don't know much about it, if you're listening, if someone's listening to this and they don't know anyone who's lost a child in this way, or, just to let that sit with you and be aware, that's really what we're talking about here. And if you ever know someone who's gone through this, like, just let that really sink into your heart. Like that's what these parents are working through. And it's one of the most painful things anybody could ever work through, regardless of the circumstances in a certain sense. So
yes,
that's neither.
And I think it's so hard for people to ask for that help, for that to, if you know somebody who's miscarried, or you definitely know somebody, even if you don't know that they did, because, oh my gosh, the amount of people that came out of the woodworks, like after we shared our story publicly, to say like, I've experienced this pain too. Like, it was like, how did I not know that all of these people had a miscarriage?
Right.
Why is it so silent? And like, I get, some people are more quiet, and that's okay. But I think for a lot of women and families, it's like, they don't know how to talk about it. They probably haven't shared that they're pregnant yet. So like, how do I just share that we miscarried? And their culture is very like you said, it's very, well, it's just a miscarriage, or it's just a chemical pregnancy. Like, what is that? You were pregnant. You had a baby. But they call it a chemical pregnancy. I'm like, no. There's a baby. Like, it's so, and I feel blessed, having been involved in pro-life work, it's very obvious to us. But I think that women suffer alone because they don't know how to say it. And they just feel like, well, it was just, it was just like 5 weeks. It was just 10 weeks. Like, no.
Right.
Like, even, oh my gosh, like even when I worked in a pro-life office, and it was like some older lady had come in, and I forget how it came up that I'd miscarried. And she was like, well, how far along were you? And I said 10 weeks. And she was like, oh, so early. And I was like, what does it have to do with anything? Yeah. I get that anytime you lose a baby, it's a different experience. But it doesn't mean you can like write it off like, oh, it was early. It's
You can only grieve 10 weeks worth. You can only grieve 10 weeks worth. You can't grieve full baby worth. That's, like it's
not to compare anyone's situation, but it's like, it's still your baby, and everyone experiences it differently. Like I didn't, like talking about like the after chapters of like after we lost Pierre, some women are really ready to try again, and like families are ready to try again and have another baby. I wasn't ready for almost a year to try again. It took me a long time to feel, I don't know, like I really, really wrestled with it. And I was healed. Like, I think you can try again, even like a couple months after you miscarry, but I was not ready. And I think part of it was being our first child. Maybe it's a different experience. I don't know, but I felt like I had lost my motherhood. I was like, what am I doing? Like, I was gearing up to be a mom, and then I wasn't a mom, and it was like, who am I? What am I supposed to be? And that was a really hard thing for me to wrestle with after. But God was very gentle with me, and it took time, my stubbornness, but showed me that I was always a mother, even before I had my baby, and still was a mother, even though I lost him, because all of us women are called to be mothers, whether we have biological children or not. And you girls know that very well. The way that you mother the people around you, like in your own vocations and callings, that's the deepest sense of motherhood that brings us the most life. Even once you do have biological children, you can still not enter into your spiritual motherhood very well. That was such a gift from the Lord to like show me that, because I think, we're very blessed now to have 4 children, living children. But there's a lot of women who are continually infertile or continually lose children and don't have any living ones. And just to say that you have not lost your motherhood, you are a mother to the children in heaven and to your spiritual children. Like, that is your deepest and most beautiful calling as a woman.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I was going to actually ask you that exact thing about what was happening in your heart, like as you moved forward, and even like what was it like after you got pregnant again. Like, cause I think I'm just thinking back. So my sister had a miscarriage, after my older nephew was born, and she was probably, I think it was one of the first ultrasounds. So it was, she was maybe like 4 weeks pregnant or something like that, 6 weeks. And yeah, and then she lost the baby shortly after that. But I think, like, when you're talking about the pro-life stuff too, I think it just does women such a disservice, this culture that we live in, because I think in some ways, she's kind of coming, back to the practice of the faith, but that culture of death just seeps into stuff, like you say, like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's, it's, you lost a child, or like in pregnancy, or it's not a child, or it's like that kind of can come in. And so I know when she got pregnant, with my younger nephew now, she kind of had like immediate anxiety about, and then she really realized actually that she hadn't grieved this child that she'd lost. Like, she didn't know that she could, or that it was good for her to have those feelings of loss and things like that. So it was a difficult pregnancy for her in that sense of, she was like dealing with kind of the grieving of the losing of this child, while there was another child who was like growing inside of her. And then she was worried at the same time about like, what happens if I lose this baby, or so what was it like for you guys in that time when you got pregnant again, and kind of growing your family after that too?
Yeah, I think on my end, I was kind of nervous and anxious for Kate, like that. I didn't want her to have to kind of go through that again. I think probably the hardest part for me with Pierre was when we knew he was passed already, but he was still inside my wife, like she was still carrying him. And that was just really hard. And it was like just trying to be there for her. And I didn't want to relive that experience. So I think there was some anxiety, just surrounding that, wanting to make sure that everything was fine. But it's so out of our control, that it's like it requires trust.
Yeah. But we did pursue support from NAPRO technology through Creighton. If you're unfamiliar with that, it's one of the natural family planning methods. And we are huge advocates of Creighton and NAPRO technology, because, oh my gosh, the amount of support you can get from them for your cycles and for your hormones, to know what's going on behind the scenes. Oh my gosh, we really believe that our 4 babies would not be here if it not the support of them. I was on progesterone for all of them, for almost all my whole pregnancy, for all of them, and beforehand, because we found out that I was low on progesterone. I don't know why I didn't really pursue it before we had a baby. Like, it's like, I think all women should figure out what's going on with their hormones before trying to conceive, because you can figure a lot of things out beforehand.
Well, I think it wasn't on your radar, like just kind of thinking about like, you never thought you would have miscarriages.
Never thought it was possible. And I had regular cycles, so it was like, yeah, that's probably fine. But I did have low progesterone. And so having, it did take us so once we started trying again for another baby, it did take us almost a whole year to get pregnant. And we were really actively trying this time. And, we had pursued support from NAPRO, and we were taking HCG shots and progesterone, and nothing was happening for like a whole year, until just like at the year mark, the day before we found out we were pregnant, we saw a rainbow in the sky. And I was like,
oh, and they call a baby after miscarriage a rainbow baby.
A rainbow baby. Yes. So we saw a rainbow in the sky, and I was like, I bet you we're pregnant. Because we were waiting, the kind of window to like take a test. And the next day we tested and we were pregnant. So we named him Noah because he's our little rainbow baby.
Right.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Oh gosh, I never made that connection. What the heck? I never. That's so cool.
That's awesome.
It's a beautiful connection.
we
We're
definitely
glad
were.
we didn't see a burning bush because we didn't want to name him Moses.
What's wrong with
Melchizedek.
Moses?
Another problem if you saw a burning bush.
We saw someone who was a priest forever, and then
That's right.
Melchizedek was born.
Just call him Mel. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's right.
Melky. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, so we were grateful for that support of NAPRO. Definitely were nervous and stressed out about what's going to happen. Am I healthy? Like what's going to, my first ultrasound, I was an absolute nervous wreck because I was just like the flashback, right? But praise be to God, everything was okay. We knew that I had to keep being on progesterone to make like my levels were not like working themselves on their own. So we kept having to test and increase the dose, but praise God, we were able to figure that out so that my body was able to carry Noah. But yeah, I mean, every pregnancy after that, like you're nervous about it and wondering.
Yeah.
It's very hard and very stressful. And every single day you think about it. And especially like till you can feel the baby kicking, you're like, in my experience, because I had miscarried and didn't know, it was like, what is he there? Like, what's going on? You kind of like play games with yourself of like, I just have a sense that they're like not doing well. And it's like, I don't know anything, but you just like play tricks on yourself. Right. Yeah. So yeah, like I know I always am so relieved when you can start feeling the kicks, because then you can at least have a daily like reminder that they're doing okay. Yeah. Until then you're like, I don't know, you know? Yeah. So yeah, it's very stressful. Yeah. But yeah, thanks be to God, all of our pregnancies have been healthy.
Yeah, all your kids are super cute. So,
they are very cute.
They are, but that's just true. It's just
it's the progesterone,
very cute. Yeah,
that's right.
It's just awesome. Yeah, get some really cute babies. No, but I wanted to ask, like Jesse mentioned, you know, nothing's in your control. In a certain sense, like you were able to find out this thing about your hormones and you know, get that support. And so those things, like there are things you can do, which is, you know, that's good news, like for people to know, like there may be things you can do. And, you know, for women in this situation, like, you know, pursue definitely, I mean, as has been said already, pursue kind of go look at Creighton and go look at what's available, because there are people who want to help you in really beautiful and good and whole ways, like help you be a healthy woman. And we'll link it in
the show notes. So if you're listening and you want to check that out, definitely check it out. Yeah.
So that's really awesome. But like Jesse said, I mean, so many things are just out of our control. I mean, just in life in general. And this is like a heightened experience of that. Like this is something so vulnerable and it's so out of your control. So you really have to trust the Lord in such an abandoned kind of way. And I'm just kind of, I want to know like how did the Lord lead you through that? Like to help you trust him or like, you know, I'm sure it was a struggle at times. And how did you work through that struggle because I think honestly, like we have this podcast fundamentally because we're all trying to learn to trust the Lord in the face of things that don't make sense. When you know, because the problem of pain, like basically you're like, okay, Lord, if you allow this, how can you love me? You know, this is the doubt that gets sown. And this is the doubt we always have to battle and like uproot and get out. And you're kind of facing that battle every, you know, like you said, each pregnancy, you sort of have to face that battle and really trust God. So yeah, that's my question. Like, how did you guys work through that?
I think the gift of the present moment is what really got me through, and through any like moments of suffering. It's like, I am here now. The Lord loves me. And in the moments of pregnancy, it's like my baby's here now. I have him or her now. And I think the pro-life approach is really helpful for that too, because it's like my baby is here. I can celebrate their life today. I have them today. And I see that too with like, I don't know if you've been following like Leah Darrow and her baby. Yes. She had like a baby really early and like she was really fighting for his life. And oh my gosh, she would so crazy, like miraculous. And I loved like pretty much every Instagram post she made. She was like, we have our baby today. We have baby Sly today. And it was like, that is so true. Like even in pregnancy, I have my baby today. I love them today. All they know is love. I can't know what's happening tomorrow. I have my baby today. Yeah. So I think that's what helped me just like stay in the present moment, because we just get so like wired in and like trying to think of the future, what could happen, but it's like, I have baby now. That's all I can do. Just love them now. What about you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's staying present, trying to just focus on what we have, the blessings that we have, focusing on serving as well, to be able to provide and be there for Kate as much as I can. And I think another big thing is like just realizing that we still have Pierre Joseph, like he's interceding for us. He's a part of our family, and just having like basically a personalized intercessor for our family is incredible. It's like such a grace.
Who else does you want to pray for? Just us.
Yeah,
totally.
Maybe some other people, but mainly us.
Maybe you guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like for sure. For this episode, we'll invoke his intercession for anybody who listens. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Maybe I can. One of the things that you wrote on Instagram, Kathleen, was so beautiful. A post that you put. So maybe I can read this and just ask kind of like how things have changed for you guys, or what's gotten easier or what's not gotten easier, those kind of things. So this was the post. I think it must have been two years ago about, I think, and so at the time it had been 6 years since you lost Pierre. So you wrote, it's been 6 years, and I still have trouble talking about it out loud. 6 years, and I've only looked through our little memorial box twice because I find it too emotional. 6 years, and the memories still bring the feeling of a hard rock in my throat. 6 years, and the negative voices that tell me I should be over it, or it was just a miscarriage, or I should just appreciate the kids I do have instead of grieving, can bombard my mind at times. It's been 6 years since we lost our little Pierre Joseph, far too early. But in those 6 years, we've prayed for his intercession every single day. We've been blessed with his brother and 2 sisters, and now another baby. Our hearts have received a lot of healing, a deeper awareness of Christ's tenderness and the meaning of his death and resurrection. My own understanding of motherhood has been stretched and purified. We've been able to grieve with and mentor so many couples who would otherwise be silently suffering in their own losses. 6 years, and the Lord is making a way for goodness to come from a death that was not his plan. Sweet boy, I can only imagine the life that you might have lived on earth with us, but instead you rest in the arms of our Lord, living in the perfect happiness of heaven. With such innocence, you see the Father so clearly and are our little advocate in heaven. We can't wait to meet you again one day. Thanks be to Jesus. I just read that and just wept and wept and wept and wept because it's so beautiful. Yeah, but maybe you can share, Kathleen, like that was 2 years ago, from now. And Jesse, what of that, does it still ring true for you? What kind of gets easier over time? What's still like the welcome pain, I guess, like you kind of talked about before, because it signals that love. What's that like?
Yeah, I think I could post the same thing, this coming year around and still feel the same things that I don't. Every year that we have to like the anniversary, there's like multiple days of like, the day that we found out he passed, the day of the surgery, the day of his funeral, his due date, all those things. Yeah. And on those days, like I want to like honor him like out loud and like look at that little box that we have. It's very, very hard still. Yeah. And I sometimes just like don't want to do it out loud because it's like exhausting to be so emotional sometimes. Yeah. And I'm sure you can relate to that. And people listening, like you don't want to like enter into suffering if you don't have to. And not that I don't want to remember him, because we do, and we pray his intercession every single day with the kids. We say, Pierre Joseph, pray for us, and have like visible memories of him around. But it's still very hard to like let yourself feel that pain. But that being said, Oh, our other little babies, Jesse's gonna go tend to him. That I don't think that it's bad. Like, I don't want to get to a place where it's like easy to remember him, because it's just a pointing towards our longing for heaven.
Yeah.
And that, through the whole experience of like losing him and committing him to the Lord, my appreciation for the resurrection and what Jesus has done to conquer death is like, I understand it so much better.
It's like so real.
Like, if he didn't conquer death, what would he be after we die? That's the whole point, is he wants to be with us, wants us to be with each other forever, So appreciating the gift of the resurrection through this whole experience was truly what God has brought from that, and to long for heaven, and for our kids to long for heaven when we can be. And my kids are always, especially my oldest who's 5, he's always like, we talk, if it comes up like how many kids we have, he always mentions like, oh, we have 5 kids, like don't forget about, and he like points up to heaven, and I'm always like, I just love you, it's so sweet. He always remembers Pierre, and just nonchalant, like it's not a big deal, like he's in heaven, he's our brother,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still hard, but it's okay. Like, I'm okay with the fact that it's hard. It's hard to wait for heaven. Suffering is hard. It's okay.
Yeah.
And it changes, like grief changes, but talking with women who have just experienced miscarriage and they're wondering like when they're going to feel better again, it's like, I don't know if you're ever going to feel better. It's just going to be different,
Yeah.
And I want like to give permission to those families, those couples, especially the moms who are in the thick of that grieving, to like, let yourself grieve. Don't give yourself a timeline. Just grieve.
Yeah.
It's going to look different every day. Some days I just had to watch The Office all day because I just couldn't cry anymore.
Yeah.
But then I had to just let myself cry, like it goes through waves. But it's always going to be there, and that's okay. The pain will always be there, and that's okay. Like, it's good that it's still there. Because we're not in heaven yet,
Yeah.
And I'm sure you talk about that a lot on this podcast of like suffering. It's like, we're all trying to like get out of the suffering. I don't want to suffer anymore. And it's like, that's going to come and go.
Like, this is exactly
that's what we're doing.
This is the thing. Yeah. This is part of the name In the Thicket comes from partly from the second reading on the feast day of John of the Cross, because he talks about the thicket of the riches of God, and the thicket that we can only come to the thicket of the riches of God by entering first, and in truth, the thicket of the cross, and that and in such a way that we find there our consolation and desire. Like, so it's like it's like the Lord invites us somehow into this thicket of the cross, and it's still the thicket. The brambles are still there. The sharp points are still there. All of the things are still there, but somehow it's like you can see the beauty of the colors, or like it's like you can find there this beauty exactly because of what you say, because it's linked, because the Lord linked it to resurrection. And so we know if we're like that thicket that we're in is like, even if it's imperceptibly transforming, that it will transform into something totally new and resurrected and beautiful one day, but it's such a process to get to that part of like being in the thicket and not being like, this friggin' thicket, I frickin' hate this frickin' thicket.
Gotta get out of it.
Yes, totally.
I need to get out. Yeah.
And one of the most beautiful things the Lord spoke to me when we were in the thick of the grieving was like, I was like wrestling with like, I need to get out of this. Like, I need to feel happy again. Like, I need to feel like, out of it. And I had this like image in my head of like, the Lord's on this like happy island, and I will get there eventually. But for now, I'm on this like sad island, and like, Lord, I will meet you on Joy Island eventually, but I'm not there. But then it was like, we have this image of Jesus, like Sacred Heart, and he's got the crown of thorns, and he, you probably know the image I'm talking about, where he just like looks so sad, and he's like bleeding, and at the bottom it says, "For God so loved the world." We have this image in our living room, and Jesus looks so sad. He's like looking at you in the eyes with like such piercing, sad eyes. And he spoke to me that like he was grieving with me. He was in it with me.
Yeah.
And like you hear that all the time. Like Jesus was on the cross, like he's suffering with you, but it was like, oh my gosh, he's not waiting for me to come to Happy Island. Like he is grieving with me. Death was not his plan. He is sad that my son died. This is not what he wanted for us, you know?
Yeah.
And I could rest in him while he grieves with me. I didn't have to be with him only when I was happy. It was like, no, like I can be with him while he's suffering, while I'm suffering. That's the beauty of the cross. And it just hit me in a whole new way in our own grief.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful.
I think like in some ways this is the whole point of these conversations for us, is like to remind ourselves like, the Lord, and it's so beautiful in your post and what you just said about, it's still really hard. And like that there, like that makes sense. Like, it is like in a certain way, in a sense, like, why wouldn't it be? And I think that that's like what the Lord shows us. He's like, he did not come to deny that we suffer. Like he came to be with us in it and then transform it, but he never denies it. Like he never looks at us and is like, like it's fine now. Like you should be like, in fact, the opposite. He took on the worst things so that in the worst things we would not be alone. And we would know, in fact, that God himself sees the worst things as just devastatingly awful and terrible. And it's like, and it's interesting because it's not about wallowing. It's just about truth. I think that's what it is. Yeah. It's just about the truth of life, the truth that God is in fact real, and that in the very real things that we go through, in the most, and sometimes painful things, which God did not ever plan for us or want for us in that way, but they do now, I think almost like because of the cross and because of Christ coming, they are sometimes moments in which we feel reality and connected, and our connection with God in reality in a very powerful way, and more in kind of uniquely powerful ways, not more than when we're happy, but in a way that we don't feel when we're happy. Like, and they're not mutually exclusive, but it's just that in suffering is only on this side of heaven. Like when we get to heaven, there will be nothing like this. But God came down so far that even in like that, in fact, in the worst things that we experience here, he can, and he does, if we let him, like join his heart to ours in this like very, very profound way on this side of heaven. That I think, when we deny the truth of a situation that we're going through, we were denying God the opportunity to really love us in a way that otherwise, like, we wouldn't receive. Now, again, not that he wants us to go through that thing, but given that we are on this side of heaven, he's like, every death that we experience, is a place that he wants to meet us most profoundly. And if we reject or deny the loss and the pain, we also reject and deny his sorrow for us, his love of us, like everything that he wants to give us. And in a way, like the fact that you feel this loss and pain, like you and Jesse said, like it points you to your longing to be with Pierre in heaven, Yeah. And that longing, we should never lose that longing.
Can you imagine on the day when you go to heaven, God willing, with the Lord, and you get there and your arms are open wide and Pierre jumps into them for the first time? Like, I know heaven is not whatever theologically embodied, but I just can't. That image is so beautiful. Yeah. Like just the total joy and completeness that will be there is like, it's totally, it's a painful thing to long for that, but it'll make it even sweeter when there's the fulfillment of all of those longings.
Yes. And we, in imagining that, it's like, we realize how this is not the life. Like the life is heaven. When we get there, we're going to be like, why did I why did I like fret so much, or why was I like, I can't wait? It's like, it was only 100 years. Like, we're getting like millions and millions of, you know, like he's living the life. This is not the life, you know?
Life.
Like not even to be like the life. I'm like the eternal, like that's what we're made for. So this little blip, yes, I long for him and I long for heaven, but it's just a little blip. He's where we're all meant to be, and we're all gonna be there, you know. It's soon, as we said earlier.
That's right. Soon and very soon. Jesus is coming.
Like The Chosen, you know, that's like a thing in The Chosen, right? Where he's like soon, and the disciples are like, okay, what do you mean when you say soon? It's like very frustrating to us.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, okay, so maybe we could close with this, and then you guys have a fun God wink to share, Kathleen. But if there's anything that, like, just in a practical way, because we also like people to kind of walk away some practical things, like if you have anything you want to share with women and men, like moms and dads who've experienced losing a child, if there's anything practical that you think might be helpful for them, but also for those who are like walking with, or, you know, friends or family of people who have, you know, are there any things that are definitely not helpful, or what is helpful?
Well, hopefully, you know, the things that aren't helpful, but, you know, saying things like, well, at least you can get pregnant, or like, you know, at least it was early, or like those kinds of things, like, or you'll have a baby again, don't worry, like that's just not helpful. No. It's not acknowledging the baby. The best thing you can do is to acknowledge the baby out loud, both the person who's grieving and the person who's helping you, to say it out loud, at least. And if you're not really a open vocal person, just find one person that you can talk about your baby out loud with, because it makes it more real for your, you know, outward state to say it out loud to somebody that can grieve with you, and to hold that space for you to grieve. You don't have to post it online, like whatever. You don't have to do anything like that. I mean, you can if you feel confident, but just to have one person at least is to speak to about your baby, to name your baby, and to have a physical reminder in your life, whether it's like you buy a special bracelet or a special necklace, or you have like a little picture, someone could draw something for you, or like I often will buy for my friends who have miscarried sacred art by Tiana. She's a Canadian artist. Oh, so she has beautiful. Some beautiful images, and so often
we'll put those in the show notes too, so people can go and look. Yeah,
you should. It's a really good miscarriage gift of like our lady sleeping with a baby. She also has one of like the Lord holding a baby in his hands. To have like some physical reminder. It doesn't have to be like obvious, but just to have that in your home, hanging to remember your baby, because they are real, and you know they deserve that memorial, because they're your sweet little baby that you'll be with in heaven. And if you are helping somebody through it, to do whatever you can for them. Don't ask what do you need, but just like give them options of like, can I pick this up for you? What are you having for dinner? Can I bring you dinner? Like, just like be specific of what they need to encourage them to grieve and to take space, like encourage them to take time off work. Like your baby is not just a clump of cells, not something to just move on, not a chemical pregnancy, nothing like this. You have the ability to take the time. You won't regret it. Because like when time passes later and you're like, oh, I wish I grieved, it's like weird, like it's hard to like go back and like you can, but just you know while it's happening, take the time to grieve and love that sweet baby and let your body rest. It's important for you to do that.
Totally. Oh, those are super helpful things. And I know, like, I'm immediately thinking of, I'll do a shout out to the Turlins, who they lost a child earlier this year, so you can pray for them, but they've been very public about it too. So if you know them and you're going through this, you could talk to them. Or in Ottawa, Sean and Chantal Flynn, they lost twins. They've had a couple of pregnancies of multiples, and so they've lost multiple children as well. So, and that's just in Ottawa that I know, you know. So if you're, like you said, Kathleen, if there's somebody that you can share with, or I think people in the Catholic world too are starting to become a little bit more like here and there. You see people who really are sharing, like you and Jesse, that can be really helpful for people to share with somebody else who's gone through the same thing too and understands a little bit about what you're feeling. But we will definitely, we can all ask for Pierre's intercession. He's going to be flooded with requests.
I love it. Keep him busy up there.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing with us, you and Jesse both. Like, just, I mean, like you said, emotional stuff is draining and it can be, you know, so we figured this episode would be like kind of full of that. So like, thank you for being willing to share with people and to walk with people in this. I'm sure it's been a gift to so many, and I think it will be a gift to anybody who's listening to this, even if they haven't experienced it themselves, but are just walking with people who might. But we can definitely end on a fun thing, so you can share your God wink. I'm excited to hear it because it's Noah's God wink. You say
it's Noah's God wink, yeah. So
that's so appropriate. Actually, I love that.
Yeah, it's true. So when the episode airs, we'll have more like announce this publicly, but the Lord has made it clear. So currently Jesse and I live in Ontario and have for the past, I don't know, 8 years. And I've been like discerning moving, feeling like God wants us to move somewhere else, like we need community, these kinds of things. And we're like, where the heck do we go? Suddenly the Lord made it clear that we should move to Nova Scotia, where Jesse's family is from. We were visiting there. We were having vacation with Jesse's family, and like both individually in prayer, Jesse and I were like, are we supposed to move here? And I was like, what? No, that's crazy. We can't move here. But then we like spoke to each other and we were like, well, God said it to both of us, so like maybe we should talk about it. So we started talking about it. Like, I want to try to condense this story, but basically, like, we asked the Lord, just like make it so clear, because it's too hard to weigh Ontario, Nova Scotia, like it's too hard. Yeah, too many different things. Yeah. So we said we had been praying a novena to Saint Therese, and then to Saint Joseph, and then currently we were praying to Saint Therese, and so we said, Lord, please show us roses and lilies if we should move to Nova Scotia. Wow. And so Jesse had gone back to Nova Scotia for his nanny's funeral. And we were like, pray really hard while you're there about this. And so 3 separate times, it was very clear he saw roses and lilies. I'm just skipping the details to get to a different detail. But 3 separate times, it was very clear. So he calls me from there like, oh my gosh. And I was like, are you serious? We're moving there? Crazy. So he comes home and he tells me this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Lord, you got to give me a sign because this is huge. I'm leaving my family. So the next day I take the kids to mass. What do I see in front of Our Lady? A vase full of roses and lilies. I was like,
are you serious?
Wow. Immediate peace. So much peace. I was like, okay, Lord. So I'm just skipping through all this to get to the final God wink.
That's awesome.
But it was like, Lord, I think he wanted to make it so clear for us because it is such a hard decision to leave our family that he wanted us. Because already I'm like, but okay, my roses and lilies. Okay, so the final God winks to my sweet little Noah. He heard us telling our friends all about these signs that the Lord gave us. We were meant to move. And he's like, well, I want a sign too. And we were like, okay. Like, not to like doubt what the Lord can do. We were like, okay, sure, buddy. Like, what do you want to see? And he was like, I want to see keys. And we were like, what? Okay. We're like, okay, we'll just ask the Lord if we're meant to move to Nova Scotia, let him show you keys. So he prays this little prayer. He's only 5. We go to mass the next day on Sunday. And I was pointing out to him, I was like, no, there's my roses and lilies. Like the vase, it was still there in front of Our Lady. And he's like, well, where's my sign? And like right when he says that, we lock eyes with like across from Our Lady, engraved into the wall are these like kingdom keys, like engraved into the wall, like right next to that spot. And we were like, what? Oh my God.
Amazing.
So cool. So we were like, there is zero doubt in any mind that we're not supposed to go there because
including
like,
Noah.
He even gave that, welcome back, Jesse. He even gave that little blessing to our 5-year-old. Like how merciful is the Lord to even give a sign to our 5-year-old? Like that's not necessary. So beautiful. And he'll remember that forever, I'm sure. Like,
literally,
you know?
Oh so my gosh, beautiful. That's huge. Like that's probably gonna be like a huge moment. Like, you know, like one of those, what do you call those moments? Like people have a name for that, like a core memory or whatever.
Core memory,
core memory.
Like, yes. You know what I mean? It's like that's like that's like memory. Super crazy amazing. Oh my gosh.
So cool.
Amazing. Also, I don't know, maybe this is a thing, but I'm like, I don't feel like roses and lilies. Like they're like Our Lady and Joseph, but they're usually not together. Like they're not together usually. So
so we saw them multiple times. So weird. We were like, okay, Lord.
Oh my gosh.
this is something.
Yeah. I love it when he makes things so obvious, especially when it's like a high stakes thing. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
just
Such a
having
relief.
that, like, from him is like, oh, thank you. You're so
and
good.
just
to me.
for
Thank
like
you.
American listeners out there who may not know, Nova Scotia is it's beautiful, very different from Ontario.
Yep.
Like it's Maritimes, it's an island. Like there's just so many different. So it's like huge change for the LeBlanc family.
Yes.
It's super exciting, and it's going to be so amazing. And
That's right.
we're all going to
Come visit us there. Come vacation.
Yeah.
And they have in Saulnieville, they do have a Frenchies. Do you know, right? You guys know Frenchies,
I love
right?
Frenchies.
Okay. So Frenchies is this place. It's kind of like Value Village, except for not Value Village. Like all it is like bins of clothes. That's it. And they separate them by like men's, women's, and like kids and adults. That's it. And it's just bins of
the free for all.
And so like on the days where they dump the new clothes into the bins, like it's a madhouse, everybody's just digging through these clothing bins that are just. Anyways, that's where I got like half my clothes in high school.
We did like a Frenchies run with Jesse's mom when we were visiting. We like went to like 3 Frenchies in the area and like did them all. So great.
Cool.
Yeah, but the Saulnieville one is like it's like a good quality.
Yeah.
I used to live in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. So that's for listeners. It's like how far is it from where you guys will be? It's like an hour and a bit.
It's
I
about
think.
an hour.
45 minutes.
Something like that. So. Anyways, so I'm also moving to Nova Scotia. I'd just like to announce to everybody here at this time. I'm not actually.
We're moving to Nova Scotia?
Yeah.
I leave.
What happened when you were gone, Jesse?
For 20 minutes.
That's right. Exactly. Your whole life is upended. That's right.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, okay.
I love that Noah got a sign list. So
I love
awesome.
it. Yes. Amen. That was a beautiful note to end on of like hope and love and cuteness.
Yes.
But thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank
Jesse
you guys.
and Kathleen.
Thanks for having us.
Such a gift. You're such a gift. And so we'll put in the show notes all the stuff that we talked about, any of the links and all those kind of things. And we'll also have a link to Found Together. It's wearefoundtogether.com, right? Is that the website?
Yeah.
Wearefoundtogether.com. So you guys can check out there.
Wearefoundtogether.com.
Nice. And then everybody will wait with everybody will wait with bated breath now to hear your EP, which will sound nothing like the jingle.
The EP that currently is, I just want to say, there is an EP y'all can listen to already.
Yes.
So go check that out.
What?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, no.
See?
This is wild.
All right, everybody. Listen, God bless you, dear listeners. And we will be back with you next week. Next week is an interesting episode because there's Abby is joining us. She's a forensic nurse at a hospital for those who have been found not criminally responsible by reason of mental illness for crimes that they've committed. So
it's
a little
really
bit
funny.
of a jump. It's a little bit of a jump.
Yeah, it's a little different. It's also really funny, Erin, because everybody should know, Erin's the one who's like the organized one. She plans all the things. Like she's kind of on top of the schedule. And I literally, because Erin is so on top of it, it just is not in my head at all. So whenever you say like next week's episode is really exciting, I'm always like, oh yeah, what is it? I'm like a listener and then I'm like, what is it going to be? Oh my gosh.
Ooh, that's going to be good.
Yeah.
I can hear it. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. Oh yeah, I was in that conversation, right? Oh yeah, perfect. Okay. So so that will be next week. We're looking forward to being on with you, and thank you again, LeBlancs, for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
So good. God bless you all.
Bye, everybody.
We'll see you next week. Good.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of In the Thicket. If you like what you hear, give us a rating and hit that subscribe button. We have new episodes every Monday with more stories and honest conversations about life when the going gets rough and the hope and humor amidst it all. We'd love for you to join our community on Instagram and Facebook at In the Thicket Podcast. While you're there, let us know how we can pray for you. God bless and see you next week.